Welcome to this Galien Foundation Week of Biomedical Innovation webinar celebrating the best of the best in life sciences innovation that improves the human condition. I'm Sally Ann Frank, the Global Lead for Health and Life Sciences at Microsoft for Startups, and I'll be serving as chair and moderator for this 1-hour discussion highlighting nominees in the Best Digital Health Solution category of the annual Pre-Galien USA Awards program. This webinar takes place this week, serving as an essential background for the awards, the Galien Foundation's largest event, held on Thursday evening at the American Museum of Natural History in New York. It takes place in conjunction with the annual Galien USA Forum, which hosts speakers representing top scientific experts, biopharma business executives and entrepreneurs, and leaders in public health. All told, more than 900 representatives of the nominated companies and invited guests will be joining us in person on Thursday. Because the mission of the Galien community is to improve the human condition, we have developed this webinar series to give our nominees in the different categories greater visibility into describing the highs and lows of their long journey to a breakthrough of medical discovery. In the digital health solution category, which is our focus today, we have panelists representing companies that work tirelessly in bringing their technology forward for recognition by our Galien USA Awards Committee of Nobel laureates and other distinguished leaders in science and industry. Let's start by asking each of you your company, your title, and a few words describing your association with the nominated product. So let's start with David.
Sure, Sally. Thank you, and thank you for having me this morning. Excuse me, my name is David Stoffel. I'm Chief Business Officer at a company called Rapid AI, and we are the largest clinical AI diagnostic company in decision support by install base. We're in over 2,300 hospitals, and the technology we cover everywhere from the brain all the way throughout the body. The technology we're talking about today is our aneurysm detection and decision support technology.
Great, thanks. Chris, over to you.
Awesome. Thank you so much. My name is Chris Curry. I am the Clinical Director of Women's Health at Aura, where I help guide the vision for our global healthcare program and global partnerships. We represent Aura Ring, which is a smart ring that helps to deliver personalized health data, insights, and daily guidance for our members. We contribute to the member awareness on things like sleep, activity, readiness, and recovery. And we also build a platform that creates clinical level data that can integrate with the members' data and their health system.
Great, thank you. Krissa, over to you.
Thank you, Sally. Hi, everyone. Carissa McFarland, founder and CEO of Patientory. We are the largest decentralized digital health data wallet for individuals. We aggregate health information across disparate systems like medical records, wearable devices, and use AI to create chronic disease management and clinical trial recruitment plans for individuals.
Great, thank you. Edmund.
Hi, thank you for having me. I'm Edmund Ben-Ami. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Neuralite. We're an AI company that extracts biomarkers from eye movements to objectively and accurately track neurological disease progression in conditions like Parkinson's, ALS, multiple sclerosis, Huntington's, and also cognitive deterioration in healthy individuals. And in general, our technology is meant to give a reliable and objective and accurate way to detect progression and follow patients and give individuals a better understanding of where they are and how their situation is changing.
Great, thank you. And for our friend on the move, Zahid, over to you.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me over here. Good morning, good evening, or so wherever you are. So it's hello from Riyadh. So I'm founder of TechMetal, and we build a healthcare operating system. Basically, it's solving the problem, especially for rural healthcare, underserved areas, and humanitarian relief of patients. So it's AI-enabled a workflow system that touches the facility level care, and it also touches the community level care. So we are trying to bring the connection of patient to provider into the areas wherever the people are living, wherever the people are working. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Thank you so much. And for those of you who are joining us, if you'd like to ask a question, be sure to use the Q&A panel to do so. We'll monitor that as we go through our webinar today. So I'd like to start with actually asking a few questions of our panelists to tell us a little bit more about their organizations and the solutions that we built. And let's start with, why did you choose to focus on the area that you've chosen to focus on, and the indications and how that kind of manifested into this digital technology that you have? Where do we want to start? Does somebody want to raise their hand? Like, why did you build what you built?
So I can go first.
Sure.
Okay. So basically, like, I had been working as CIO to large healthcare systems, and when I see the cost of care is really going high, and whenever we talk about the quality of care, we always talk the higher cost of care. And over the last 2 or 3 decades, pretty much we in the world, like the primary healthcare system or the care delivery wherever you are living, that is going like a bit on the lower side. Predominantly in the past, that has been working very well, and the load on the tertiary care hospitals was that low. So now everybody wanted to go into the specialized medical centers, the primary care, even pretty much talking about the US. So if we go to this ambulatory care setting, usually they would only create a referral because they don't want to take the ownership. And ownership really comes with the right process and clinical pathways. So the people, it's usually a kind of a stopover for many of the doctors and even the nurses. You would not find the right people over there. So that was the problem, and then we kind of build a workflow engine that really optimizes the entire process. You said that 29% of the healthcare cost really goes into the administrative process related to the patient. So these epics and all the big EHR system, those are pretty much built for the specialized facilities. So getting into a very lower level settings, you need to have a very robust system that really works over there, and it does not require much of support by the IT people actually. So, to be honest, we built it on Microsoft pretty much. So it's a huge contribution by the Microsoft in helping us to build the right technology solution. And now we have served more than 2 million patients through the platform, and it has a kind of offline version as well, because when we talk about all these rural healthcare setting, you would not have a kind of connectivity at some point in time. So we cannot exclude the care delivery when the internet is not available or connectivity. So we try to solve that problem with the offline solution. When the internet is available, it will pump that data back to the. And when we talk about the humanitarian relief operations, so you see, usually we end up having low or maybe low connectivity infrastructure is not there. So we built that solution in a way that it can be pivoted, it can be used into all those relief operations without any internet, without any electricity.
Excellent. Excellent. Thank you for that. So 2 million patients, that's really impressive. Chris, did you want to go next?
Yeah, thank you so much. So again, I represent Aura, and at Aura, we try and target areas where there has been historically underserved data gaps. We don't see our members, we don't see patients as a single system or a single disease. We try and really approach their health very holistically. So as an example, our work in reproductive health tries to address the fact that women have been fundamentally underrepresented in clinical research, as well as underserved by the wearables industry kind of writ large. Another approach is by providing continuous multi-metric data. So we try and provide multiple streams of objective real-world data like temperature, heart rate variability, merge it with seamless AI integration, and allow our members to see patterns of illness, stress, recovery that they could not have seen otherwise. But beyond everyday wellness, Aura is also trying to contribute to critical areas like disease detection, chronic disease management, heart health screening like cardiovascular mortality risk tools. And in addition to providing this science-backed set of products around menstrual health, sleep, etc., we also want to step into areas where we're tackling issues that are both medical and structural. So early in my career, one of my main patient populations were individuals with opioid use disorder. And so very near and dear to my heart is an academic and industry collaboration led by the Digital Medicine Society, Duke University, Triangle Center of Excellence in Regulatory Science and Innovation, along with Aura and others, where we're exploring how continuous wearable data streams like heart rate, sleep disruption, activity and inactivity, and physiologic signs of stress might potentially flag signs of relapse in folks with opioid use disorder. So the goal there is to think through remote 24/7 monitoring to try and fill a really big gap in chronic care workflows so that teams, patients, family members can intervene before things escalate. Thank you.
Wow, love that. Holistic health, just on a ring. Super. So Krissa, we'll go from Chris to Krissa.
Yes. No, that was great, Chris. I'm happy to follow after. So we currently at Patientory focus on chronic disease management, as well as rare disease management. So tackling chronic disease management, it's the greatest barrier is not medication. We found that it's data fragmentation. So patients with diabetes, cardiovascular disease, and other chronic conditions interact with multiple providers and systems, yet their data never moves with them. So the unmet need that we found is that secure patient authorized health data mobility that enables prevention instead of late stage intervention is where we want to essentially have impact on our current user base. So Patientory gives individuals ownership of their records while providing organizations with real-time AI data-driven insights, which we partner with pharma in that sense to identify early, especially in the area of rare disease studies and research. So as we know, rare disease recruitment is uniquely challenging because eligible patients are extremely small in number. They're widely dispersed across health systems and often go undiagnosed for years. So they remain invisible to research pipelines due to their fragmented clinical and genetic data, and the lack of interoperable systems makes it difficult for sponsors to identify or verify candidates in real time. So that's how we're changing the trajectory and the story around how we're being able to access individuals instead of taking a reactive approach to it. So even when patients are located, they face trust barriers, limited awareness, and availability of trials. So because access is so hard, rare disease trials have some of the highest dropout, delay, and cost escalations. And that's where we see, we've been able to provide the most impact.
Wonderful. Yeah, another access story. We love that. So Edmund, let's turn our attention to you. Tell us about Neuralite.
So in general, neurology is kind of like medicine's blind spot, which is what attracted me originally to there. And I'm not sure how much people are aware, but in general, innovation in neurology, especially neurological assessments, is usually very focused on finding better and earlier ways to diagnose disease. And the gold standards for assessing how patients are deteriorating is still checklists and questionnaires that physicians are filling while they meet their patients. And they're just using their subjective observation and intuition to how the patient is deteriorating, which of course makes it much more difficult to find new drugs, give patients the best care possible, and just give patients an idea of where they stand and how their situation is. And in general, our goal is to support the main movement in modern neurology, which is just slowing or even reversing disease progression and not just treating symptoms, which was the main goal in the last century. And the first step, it's a thing that quantifying a problem is always the first step on the way to solving it. So what we're doing is enabling both the neurologists and the researchers to very precisely and in a very reliable way to measure neurological deterioration. We focus on Parkinson's disease, ALS, Huntington's, and multiple sclerosis. And the test is super easy. It's 10 minutes of using a tablet. And we're just now publishing a paper with the creators of the current gold standard in Parkinson's that shows that we're 10 times more sensitive to disease progression than the current gold standard. And we're just focusing now on improving drug trial power and just enabling smaller and shorter trials, which is going to help bring therapy to patients faster.
Wonderful. That's tremendous. Yes, love that. That's great. So David, tell us about Rapid.
Sure. So there's a problem out there where 5% of the population of the US is walking around with an aneurysm in their head. The problem is that fewer than 1% of those patients are actually diagnosed. So there's a huge population out there that don't know they have aneurysms. In fact, Kim Kardashian was in the headlines, if you're watching People magazine or whatever, disclosed that she has one as well. The reason this is dangerous is because of aneurysm hemorrhages, 2/3 of those events are fatal. And so it's really important that we get these aneurysms diagnosed and then managed and monitored. And that's what our technology does. So we sit in the hospital with algorithms and AI. We sit on all their scanners, their CT scanners, their MR scanners, and we help flag where there are aneurysms. And then once those aneurysms are diagnosed, we help the scanners. We compare them to previous scans, and we can detect growth or instability that otherwise wouldn't have been missed. And the results we've had is that we can diagnose over 30% more aneurysms than a neuroradiologist alone. So that's someone who's expert in reading head scans. We can detect 30% more, and we're actually detecting 40% more growth in aneurysms that are otherwise missed. And what this means is that more patients can get life-saving care and be monitored more accurately so they can intervene before some of these tragic events happen. And so that's kind of what our technology does, and we extend this out through ischemic stroke, hemorrhagic stroke, pulmonary embolism. But the aneurysm solution is the one we're talking about here, but that's just an example of the results that we can bring.
Wow. And I think about all the talk that we have about AI and the fact that, the magic formula is really AI and the clinician. It's not either or. And I think that you make an excellent point there. So let's move from what you do, and David, you started talking about it a little bit, and let's go to the impact that you're seeing and maybe patients' lives or money saved or whatever it would be. Edmund, let's start with you.
I think it's kind of the two stories I think that are telling the story the best way is on one hand the more scientific one maybe, and that is that lately we're starting to see in multiple studies that we're managing to see signals much earlier and much faster to find groups of patients for which we can say things. All of you know that kind of neurology is this area where diseases are lumped together, and we talk about Parkinson's disease and ALS as if it's one disease, like we talked about cancer 80 years ago. So on one hand, when we talk to clinicians and researchers, then we see that we are giving them a tool that allows them to do things and see things they've never seen before. On the other hand, usually in areas where there are so many problems, we do whatever we can, right? So there are so many difficult and invasive tests, including CSF tests and others. And in some of the drug trials in which we are part of, we see how patients are suffering. And we have many stories of patients that just in the last phases of a trial, when they're already in a very difficult state in ALS or Huntington, and they're saying that the one test that they're going to do is like the eye thing. They just can't take anything else because it's just too late for them, and they just can't take it anymore. And I think in the end, we all understand that, just as you said before, we need to find a good way to merge clinical understanding and machine learning so that it both has actual clinical value and we understand what it means. But it's a shame not to just to leave everything to just working with our hands the way we did 50 years ago.
Yeah, I totally agree. So, Krissa, do you have a story of how it's changed kind of the patient journey and outcome?
Yeah, actually, because I know you mentioned access earlier, and we wanted to tackle access because of just like the low rates of engagement that, when we did our customer interviews with payers and employers, we there was always a drop off with the user base there. We've fortunately seen a 3x, increase in engagement on the platform because now people have their data, but we're actually giving them actionable insights, recommendations, incentivization mechanisms that keeps them engaged and actually gives them a goal to accomplish. So it's not about just having the information, it's now unlocking it, right? And having users really, be engaged and put it to the test there. So with some of our customers, we've seen seven-figure savings, due to those engagement rates, being able to decrease readmissions, unnecessary or preventable encounters. So it's been a great to see that just how, our journey of empowering the individual can actually make an impact.
Great. That's wonderful. Yeah. So, Chris, let's go over to you and Aura. We've all heard the story about like somebody having an Apple Watch and it goes off and says you might be having a heart attack and all of that. So I assume there are similar things that go on with the Aura Ring as well.
Yeah, I mean, thank you for that easy intro. Yeah, I would love love to talk about sort of like high level how we think about clinical impact and then bring it down to that individual
Sure.
level. So, sort of like first, our approach is that clinical impact has to be grounded in really good science. And so, with rings now on over 5.5 million fingers, we have been able to contribute to about 130 peer-reviewed studies across all different health domains: sleep, pregnancy, menstrual health, etc. And so that is sort of our like top level foundation. Um, we also think that you have to bring quality consumer goods to market and then put sort of the clinical solution or the medical solution on top of them because consumers are not going to want to buy something that feels highly clinical. One example of this merging of consumer and science is our partnership with Natural Cycles. We've seen a lot of momentum towards like a demographic shift in our membership where we're now a little bit over half female. And we've seen a lot of women making a choice when the choice is right for them to use digital contraception and have seen over a 350% increase in utilization of this digital tool since 2022. The third way we think about clinical outcomes is through partnerships, where we leverage Aura as both a creator of data and a healthcare platform. So, one example that I'm really excited about because it's in my wheelhouse is our recently announced partnership with Maven. And so, this partnership allows us to sync the biometric data from Aura, things like sleep, stress, activity, menstrual cycles, with Maven's virtual care platform. And so, we give this really personalized care approach across fertility, pregnancy, menopause, etc. And then lastly, yes, are the personal stories. I think these are the things that allow us to wake up early in the morning and stay up late at night. We have had members write in and tell us about a lot of times about our symptom radar feature, which is this feature that establishes your vital sign baseline. And then when something is out of whack for you, it calls out that vital sign difference and asks you to reflect on what might be going on or what you might be feeling. And we've had people write in for things as disparate as appendicitis and lymphoma. And so that really wide range of impact and that holistic approach as compared to a single issue approach has been really satisfying.
Yeah, I bet. Yeah, those personal stories are always what get you. I mean, you have the great vision and everyone's working toward improving healthcare for all, but it really comes down to those personalized stories that we've all heard from a variety of sources and our own solutions that really get to the heartstrings. So, David, let's go back over to you. You started implying some of the returns and impacts you've had, but if you could dig deeper into that, and then we'll go to Zahid, which hopefully he's stationary by that time.
Yeah, thanks, Sally. I think one of the biggest things that we impact is equity of care. And that means that since all of our algorithms exist on all the scanners throughout a hospital network, and raise people up to an expert level of reading, That means that if you're going into a hospital, a rural hospital in Nebraska, you're going to get the same expert level read as you would going into an academic center in Boston. And one of our favorite stories here is there's a academic hospital in South Carolina. One of their spoke hospitals in a very rural place ran a patient, and they got a scan. There was an aneurysm that was burst, and so there was a hemorrhage. And the alert went through, so we're fully integrated into PACS, into mobile, and our system alerted a neurosurgeon at the academic center, which was almost 500, 600 miles away. They called the spoke hospital and said, hey, there's a hemorrhage in that patient. And they did it before the ER docs even knew the scan had finished. And as you can see, I mean, just being notified, but in a timely manner, that enables people to get that expert level of care no matter where they are in the system and no matter where they go.
Sorry, I was muted. It's really impactful. And I think the whole idea about expanding access, whether it's through wearables or through an app or whatever, is really where we're headed, especially when that's accompanied by an AI that can provide guidance to a patient that's clinically relevant and all of that. So great work there, David. Zahid, can you come back on and share us kind of some of the impact stories that you've had?
Yeah, for sure. Basically, the work that we are doing is pretty unique, and it's all for impact actually. So all these healthcare settings are known to be waiting areas for the patients. So they have to wait for a long time to see a doctor, to see a nurse, or maybe to do all the labs done. So, and we proactively worked on that, done all the time motion studies about the patient touch points. So initially, for one patient to come into the facilities where we are working together with some of multilaterals or NGOs. So it was a 210 minutes for patient to get into the clinic and get out of the clinic. So we brought it down to 47 minutes. And in next optimization, we brought it down to 35. So this is kind of obviously the cost saving or even the process efficiency that we brought into the practice, and just adding to some of extending the thoughts of David. Uh, so so especially when we talk about all these rural healthcare settings, so even the doctors over there, those are not very trained. They don't understand the protocol. They don't understand the academic value of the data and care delivery. So we thought how we can bridge the quality of care delivery, like talking about Stanford and Harvard kind of institutions, and bring it down to that level where some of a doctor is sitting who is not very familiar with all these digitization, clinical pathways. So we build a kind of uh, algorithms by engaging 30 odd doctors and nurses from different areas for 16 different diseases that are pretty predominant in different areas where we are working. And now they have the set way of treating the patient. So it's like if the patient is type 2 diabetes, so they know what is the medication, how they have to get all that done, and even all the dosage adjustment. You see, these are the very basic problems that a doctor faces. So I would say 70% of patients that are coming to those facilities are basically mother and child. And you see, they usually they are not very educated. They don't understand some of the clinical terms. Many people don't understand, so that's okay. But getting them engaged into their care delivery, that was a real goal for us. And we used multiple modes to get the patient engaged into their communication by engaging through the SMS, through the mobile devices, through the wearables. So we are trying to get them engaged in a way that they are part of their care delivery, especially for the uneducated patients. So that was even as of today, it's an uphill battle to be more inclusive. So and I would say basically uh, comparing the outcomes in terms of quality measures through different quality measures and ACOs, we are doing better into even than some of the most modern facilities in terms of the content, in terms of the care delivery, in terms of the protocol.
Oh, that's tremendous, Zahid. And I think, the patient journey and ensuring that we've got the right people at the right time and, speeding up workflows and all of that is so critical to improving the quality of care. So, thank you all of you for kind of sharing the impact that you've had and all of that. Now we're going to turn our attention to, obviously, you didn't have that impact when you started. So let's talk a little bit about the journey and maybe some of the challenges that you experienced when you went from, yeah, we've got this great idea and we've got maybe a prototype or an MVP in that process of getting to the point where you are now, where you're really scaling, have clinical validation in some cases, have customers and patients using your solutions, and what that journey was like. We're interested in the triumphs and the tribulations and anything else that you care to share. So anybody want to volunteer to go first, or should I just pick someone? All right, Edmund, you're smiling big, so I'm going to pick on you. You go first.
Thank you. Yeah, I actually think that it's best to use a human AI. This is the best kind of AI when you need to make choices. But I think for us the biggest challenge was, so we're doing something that the science was existing for many years. We are building on all the modeling of the visual system, which is something that way smarter people than us did for a very long time, and we're kind of the accurate cousin of whatever happens when you come to a neurologist and they tell you to look at their nose and then follow their finger. And even though there was this huge pile of science that lots of people were doing for such a long time, there was a barrier to actually bring this to the clinic, bring this to patients, make this something that is useful. And there is always this thought of, oh, great, so there is AI. I just need to build something that works well, and everything is going to happen on its own, because why not? The innovation is what everyone is looking for. And I think this is kind of the thing that many of you guys alluded to. First of all, it's true that we are trying to make things happen well and as fast as possible, but we also need to be careful and make sure that we're doing a good job and making sure that people feel comfortable with the information we give them, and clinicians and researchers feel confident in the data we give them. And in general, when you're mixing AI into such a process, this is making everyone a little bit uncomfortable, since it's new and it didn't happen 10 years ago. And it's something that takes lots of time and lots of repetition and lots of time, and showing that things are consistent and working time and time again is just something that, for startups, things that need to be repeated lots of time and just take a long process, it's a challenge on its own. So I kind of feel like this was our biggest, just you need to collect all these publications and make sure that enough people see things to feel comfortable with things. And it's not really scientific, because it's like kind of a degree of comfort that you can't really say when you hit this threshold. So I kind of feel like this was our biggest kind of challenge that I couldn't even quantify to begin with.
Yeah, so it's all about, I guess, risk mitigation and building trust. Would you say that's probably?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. Is that what you found as well, Krissa?
Yes, I would say we had similar experiences. The biggest challenge for us, being in such a new emergent technology space, aligned in blockchain-based decentralized data ownership with healthcare regulation, was trust and the regulation landscape. We were a part of countless, number of panel roundtables, boot camps with HHS, as well as lobbied extensively for a couple, like over 5 years, around cryptocurrency. We now see our government embracing that. And what does that look like in terms of a healthcare context? So we've definitely come a long way. The lesson that we've learned is that innovation in digital health succeeds only when it respects compliance and patient agency, and when we really truly have, cross-functional representation, right? It's not a bubble. So even though like we have the technology, it's there, it's great, it's new and shiny, adoption isn't only technical, it's also behavioral, and being able to really rally people on board, was one of the biggest challenges. Now we're facing, with, some success in the US and much success there that we can continue to scale and grow. We're facing, what does that look like? Cross-border internationally, with our international expansion and global expansion. Fortunately, other countries have created policies much more stringent around AI and data access, which leverages our work in the decentralized and Web3 based fields. But for us, it's really understanding, how we can continue to innovate and set policies internally as an organization without clear-cut government regulation.
Yes, it's been interesting the last couple of years about, we have all these organizations, industry organizations that are trying to figure out how to work together so that we have a common set of not goals per se, but guardrails. And that's filling a void, at least in the US, because we're not getting a lot from our central government. So really interesting the way you're handling that. So, David, let's come over to you and the building of Rapid. What was the big challenge that your team experienced and
Yeah, I
overcame?
mean, yeah, sure. And for us, the big drivers of adoption always come down to being able to deliver clinical value, operational value, and financial value. And I'll tell you what I mean by that is that clinical value, you have to deliver information to the physician that changes their decision making or impacts their decision making or enables them to do something they otherwise wouldn't have. And that's really important. Like, hey, there's an aneurysm here. They didn't see it before. That changes things. But the other elements are super important too. Like operational value means you have to enable people to go faster than they otherwise would. In other words, giving them information, but if it makes them go slower, that's going to be a hindrance to adoption. And so we do that by integrating all the information into people's phones, into their packs. So they're actually accessing the information in ways that are different and faster and better than they would be able to before. And the final part of it is you got to deliver financial value specifically for the hospitals. And doing that, identifying an additional aneurysm patient, enabling them to do a procedure that they wouldn't have otherwise had, preventing an unnecessary transfer, or even keeping them in the system and preventing leakage because now they're tracking them, all deliver financial value for the hospitals. And so being able to have a product that delivers that is really key. But then also, and you alluded to this earlier, is getting the validation around those points. Being able to say whether it's through a paper, whether it's through a reference, or whether it's through peer-to-peer, people get to see that and see other people experiencing that value and then believing it. Those are all things that are key for us that have driven adoption.
Thank you. Chris,
Yeah,
share.
thank you.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I feel like I'm going to touch on a number of themes that were hit on by David and Chris in particular. But, something, Chris, that you said is like success is not just technical. And I want to hit on that. We started from a place of being very focused on making sure that we were entering the wearable space with technology that was not just feasible in the lab, but that was meaningful in the real world. And the way we chose to sort of approach this challenge head on was by committing to independent, peer reviewed validation of our work So build something, be proud of it, put it out there, and let other people push on it. Our lesson here is that you have to be willing to invest upfront really heavily in the basic science, in the hardware science, to make sure that we are getting that credibility right from the start. You don't get to add credibility on later. Additionally, we have to bridge this gap between clinical complexity, so when you're talking to physicians, and consumer simplicity. So a member can collect their own data, massive amounts of research grade heart rate and temperature and HRV and sleep stages, but most members have complete disinterest in trying to see the raw data or trying to gather information from that data. So we've leveraged AI, as many here have, to try and distill that information into a handful of simple, actionable steps that are real world for our members. Advice on sleep, advice on diet, thought about how to handle the day. But in parallel with that, there's this challenge of transitioning from sort of wellness messaging to a healthcare platform. And like you were talking about for David's conversation, like you have to make sure that you are creating information that drives value for the physicians, that lets the physicians do something differently, ideally better, and that lets them make the experience for both themselves and for the patient, our member, feel more personal, more real, more engaged. So I think, frankly, our challenge is that combination of making sure that the science is really good, but that we're also fluent in two languages. We're fluent in member and we're fluent in clinical.
Yeah, I really like how you've broken that out, because one of the things that I think about as this technology is changing workflows, hopefully reducing steps and all of that, is the fact that we need education. Like, we need to educate the people at the end of the devices, and we also need to educate the clinicians, the nurses, the staff in a way that enables them to adopt things because they see the value, they see fewer steps that they have to take. They see the workflows compressed, they see patient outcomes improve. And then on the patient side, the consumer side, they have to take ownership of their health and their journey and be their own patient advocate. And so translating data into actionable things to do now gives them the wherewithal to actually be a good patient advocate for themselves. So, and I think that spans kind of everything that we've been talking about. So I do want to remind folks, if you have a question that you'd like to pose, put it in the Q&A panel. And then Zahid, I'd love to hear from you kind of what your biggest challenge was to date.
So for us, because we are pretty much active into, I would say, our virgin markets. So adoption has never been an issue for us actually. So whatever we do, so it's based upon the need, and the most important is, I would say, the issue that we face, especially the inclusivity. So when we talk about getting things over the cloud, because there are many additional layers, there are many benefits that we drive from cloud adoption. So, but when we take it from the cloud on the ground, so then there is a disconnect at some point in time. So, and that disconnect was making a bit trouble on us, because people had the technology, they wanted to use it, and it was very well adopted, but they don't want to miss any patients who are really left in the curve of this technology based delivery. So then, like, obviously, we took a step back, and all the things that we do, we try to make it very simple based upon the audience that we have in different areas. So then we thought that everything cannot really get online on the cloud. So let's think of some offline solution. So we build an offline solution, and getting the offline solution, now you have to do the AIs. So taking AI in the same, maybe in a acceptable form over that, that's a challenge that we are facing right now, and we are trying to solve it through some maybe custom built LLMs in a very simple form. Obviously, with this Obviously, OpenAI, we have a lot of flexibility, but when we go offline, so we don't have that flexibility. That's the challenge that we are trying to solve right now.
Thank you. So now I'd like to turn our attention and kind of draw on the brain power and your experiences to date and project ourselves maybe 5 years in the future. And would love your take on either where your solution would be or where you might see the industry and kind of right now we're in the AI wave, like what that next wave is, and what digital solutions the Galien Foundation might be looking at 5 years from now. Put on your futurist hat.
I'm happy to kick it off.
Sure.
I mean, I think everyone here has said the word AI in their presentation at some point. And so it feels like an easy answer to say that as AI smartly moves beyond just like kitsch tools on the internet into some of the examples we have here of like really integrating into the data and pulling humans in appropriately. I am really excited as a physician to see how that makes my life better and my patients' lives better. So I feel like that is part of it. The other place I would love to make a prediction is around more integrated technologies. I think in industry, companies get really excited to build a thing that they're really good at. And I imagine that those really good technologies, when they start to merge paths, are where we're going to see some really spectacular insights, novel findings. I think as a recent example, Aura has started partnering with Dexcom. Dexcom has continuous glucose monitors. And so they build a tool that lets our members look at their interstitial glucose levels every 5 minutes. And we build a tool where you can log your food and track your activity. And each of those on its own is really cool. But when you sort of merge them and put them together, I think the level of insights, the amount of control, the amount of motivation is just orders of magnitude more than one or the other. So my prediction is sort of like merging and meshing of technologies.
Yeah, I think we're in this age of everything's a point solution. And so the opportunity to bring together these point solutions in a more holistic, because you mentioned that before, way that deals with patient care, I think is a fascinating area to consider. Thank you for that. Who wants to go next with your predictions?
I can go next. I would say there is definitely going to be a convergence of technologies, as Chris mentioned earlier. And I think we've been executing and innovating in robotics sort of like on the outside of a lot of the software tech and just really seeing that come into full when we think about providing personalized care for individuals, having, house call by a robot, that actually can understand the clinical data and be able to at some point diagnose with what we're doing at Patient Tory, being able to secure that information and really prevent people going out to, resources like Chat GPT and try to make a diagnosis for themselves, right? For that error. So really creating a trusted ecosystem where we can see these technologies really come together, bind and really provide the quality of care at scale.
Maybe we'll have holographic clinicians or avatars that will show up at our house. Who knows? Who wants to go next?
Well, maybe I'll go next because I think the convergence we completely buy into, and I think new types of partnerships are going to unleash new capabilities. And for example, for us with aneurysms, the next frontier we're thinking is coming sooner than probably 5 years is predictive. So you're not just you're diagnosing an aneurysm or seeing the change. You're going to be able to say at the initial diagnosis, based on the type of aneurysm this is, its morphology, its shape, this is the risk that it's going to rupture. This is the type of treatment that might most benefit. These are the types of complications that might result, or these are the type of catheter that might be best suited for this. So you'll start to get more information at that initial time of diagnosis that actually can predict the patient's journey and be able to take interventions earlier to kind of alter that to make it the best possible. But I agree with what Chris and Krista have said wholeheartedly, is that I think partnerships and data are going to be the key to unlocking that future.
and I also think about even going back, you were talking about, having an aneurysm and being able to predict. But we could also go back in that chain even further and go, can you predict that you might have an aneurysm and start screening for that before you even have one, for example? And how do we turn the table? And we've all talked about this at some point, the table from preventative or to preventative instead of from the break fix model that we have now. So, and focusing on wellness. So, Edmund, do you have a Zahid? I just saw you come off of mute. Do you want to give us your prediction,
Yeah. So
Edmund?
I just wanted to catch your words. So I used to say, initially we were all talking about the volumes. Then we started thinking, no, volume is not really working. We should talk about the value. And I think future is all about the wellness. So 5 years from now, we would be talking to our body or maybe different organs, and they would be giving us a different kind of data that would be pretty useful to just get insights. So how the things are doing, how the food is working, how the environment is working on us. So and how the treatment is really getting through in us. So I think that kind of models would be built, and that would predominantly change the healthcare delivery, and especially maybe many of the things that need intervention from the clinicians would really be taken down to the intervention from the maybe nurses or technicians or maybe stuff like that. And even still maybe 40, 50 or 60% of all the interaction that happens between the provider and the patient, it would be from patient to patient, like by the patient with himself. So that's, I would say, the future promise entails to in terms of the wellness.
Great, thank you. Edmund, last but not least.
So I think in the end, in 10 years from now, we're actually going to start seeing the things we're starting to talk about right now happening. So, we're talking a lot about AI, and we see all the cool people here in the room that are finding such awesome ways to bring information that no one could collect on people. Like Chris is telling how she's collecting data about humans in amounts that we could not only never collect, we could never do anything with before our modern capabilities. And I think in the end, we started talking about personalized care a while ago, but I think it's going to be at least 10 years until we really start seeing what it actually means. And we start seeing things like that lately in directions that were not moving for a long time. I'm sure all of you heard about the really exciting progress with Huntington's disease that is pushed by the Cure Huntington Disease Initiative, or like really cool partners, and lots of amazing people that are finding new ways to collect data we could never have collected and actually crunch it and start looking at patients not in a lumped way, which was the only way to do things when physicians needed to learn new things from the few hundreds of patients that they saw throughout their life. And I think we're still not even close to understanding how this is going to change everything. And it's going to probably take like 10, 15 years. And we're going to look back and say, wow, we were such idiots before.
Yeah, I think you bring up a really good point, and I suspect that all of you have similar experiences where we spend our days in this bubble of healthcare and life sciences innovation, and yet when we go to see our clinicians, it's pretty much the same as 20 years ago or 30 years ago. So I'm hoping that in that 10-year horizon that you were talking about, Edmund, that not only will we actually see these things continue to grow, but we'll actually see them at the point of care much more frequently than we do now.
You're saying in time for it to help us? That's what you mean?
Yeah, that would be nice. That would also be nice. So speaking of helping us, one of the things that is that we're all keenly aware of is that there are areas in this world that have really good healthcare and areas that are struggling. We only have a few minutes left, but I'd love a couple of you to weigh in on how we scale what we're doing to some of the areas like South America and Africa, where they just don't have the quality of care that we have, or access to it. So maybe somebody, we've got probably a couple minutes for one or two of you to weigh in on this one.
Yeah, I'm happy to weigh in.
Yeah.
I think what you articulated isn't just a problem in Africa or some
Right.
more remote areas. It could be in rural America. It could be, right down the street from you. And I think the reality is there's a limited number of physicians, and we're not dramatically increasing the number of physicians out there. And so the gap has to be filled up by technology, either helping physicians go faster with the work that they're doing, or connecting them to these places of care so that their expertise can be spread out more democratically, or whatever the phrase is. But connecting people to those centers of expertise, I think, is going to be key for us to address these gaps.
Yeah.
I also And I think, with the new launch of the Rural Health Transformation Bill, right, that was recently launched here in the US, being able to provide different types of modalities of care for, individuals in remote areas can be a great launching pad for areas like Africa, and the Caribbean, right, and certain parts of Asia. So at the core of that, I think this is really a big debut for telehealth. I was actually a part of a telemedicine company a decade ago, and that was new emergent tech, and we were so excited about it. It didn't really scale as like the industry wanted it to, but I think it's still there, and I think it pretty much is a precursor to a lot of the innovation that is happening in digital health.
Great. We'll end on that note, but I do have a few wrap-up comments. First of all, I want to thank all of our panelists for joining us, and of course, we wish you well at the award ceremony. This webcast will be available on the Galien Foundation's homepage, so if you want to check it out there and hear from some of these companies again, if you missed something, we'd love for you to watch again. On behalf of the Galien Foundation, our panelists here, and the rest of the team, we'd like to thank everybody for joining, and we look forward to seeing you everyone in person in New York City on Thursday. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks a lot.